Growing older is only one aspect of aging. Another is adopting a fresh perspective on life that is influenced by life lessons learned, resiliency, and occasionally hard-won knowledge. We encounter difficulties as we age that put the convictions we previously held in our youth to the test. Here's the reality, though. You can regain your sense of self, safeguard your dignity, and cultivate your pleasure by being aware of these facts. We'll reveal 7 crucial skills in this video that will help you age gracefully and with confidence. These are not only words of consolation, rather, they are insightful statements supported by practical knowledge and professional counsel. You'll discover how to defend yourself against deception, establish boundaries that preserve your harmony, and eliminate toxic relationships with friends, family, and even with society's expectations. We'll also look at ways to completely embrace the wisdom and independence that come with growing older and let go of regrets from the past. This is a must-watch if you wish to have a genuinely fulfilling later life. So, stick with me through to the end. You might leave with a fresh viewpoint that transforms your life. To ensure you never miss a crucial topic, if you're new here, think about subscribing and turning on notifications. A like and a share would be greatly appreciated if you think this video is helpful. It makes these messages more accessible to those in need. Please share your opinions in the comments section. If you're passionate about this subject, press 1. If you'd prefer to see something else, press 0. Let's begin this path to a more knowledgeable and capable you now. The first piece of advice is to not put your blind faith in anyone who comes to you. Some advice that appeared straightforward at first takes on a completely different meaning as we age. In the peaceful times of our lives, loneliness can creep in like an unwanted guest. Meaningful relationships that provide warmth, companionship, and understanding are what we long for. Ironically, though, this intense need for connection can occasionally make us susceptible. In actuality, not everyone who comes into our life intends to do so. We frequently get more understanding, forgiving, and inclined to see the best in people as we get older. Although these are admirable traits, they can also make us easy pickings for people who know how to take advantage of goodwill. Some people know how to manipulate emotions to suit their own purposes and can tell when we are at our most vulnerable. You may be familiar with this pattern. Someone who calls themselves a friend always seems to show up when you're having a hard time, offering consolation and a sympathetic ear, but then disappears as soon as things start to get better for you. They seem to live more on your neediness and vulnerability than on a sincere connection. Then there are pals that coerce you into doing favors, family members who suddenly reach out when they need money, and so-called friends who constantly ask but hardly ever provide. Think of the neighbor who frequently calls to discuss her issues but never inquires about your well-being. Or the relative who shows up out of the blue to want a loan rather than to see how you're doing. Perhaps a longtime buddy gently coerces you into doing things for them, fully aware that your generosity will make it hard to refuse. In the long run, these one-sided relationships deplete your vitality and self-esteem. However, this isn't about isolating oneself or living in perpetual distrust. It involves gaining the discernment to identify sincere relationships and establishing limits to safeguard your mental health. Our time grows increasingly valuable as we get older, and we owe it to ourselves to surround ourselves with positive individuals rather than those who exploit our kindness. Saying no is not a sign of selfishness but rather of self-respect. Although trust is a wonderful thing, it must be offered carefully. Look for patterns rather than just words. A genuine friend or companion would honor your personal space and appreciate you for who you are, not just what you can contribute. Imagine reflecting on your older years with contentment rather than regret, knowing that others around you genuinely care about you and that your bonds are based on respect for one another rather than duty. That would be far more satisfying than bearing the burden of one-sided relationships. Wouldn't it? So keep this in mind as you proceed. Your spirit should be nourished by relationships, not depleted. Make informed decisions, have discernible faith, and fiercely protect your peace. Because ultimately, the caliber of your relationships will determine the caliber of your life. The second piece of advice is to give up trying to win over people, especially your family. Having to face this fact is never simple. The truth is that many of us have lived our whole lives putting the needs and wants of others, our spouses, children, and grandchildren, above our own. This can be uncomfortable, even painful, to acknowledge aloud. Since sacrifice is the purest form of love, we have dedicated decades to making sure they are happy. However, have you ever paused to consider the cost? You probably thought when you were younger that you would have time for yourself, to pursue your passions, to relax, and to enjoy the life you had worked so hard to create once the kids were grown and your responsibilities decreased. However, here you are, older, possibly retired, but still enmeshed in a web of obligations. The demands are still there. They have become more intense in many respects. They still look to you, and you are still expected to lend a hand, be accessible, and make sacrifices. And as time passes, the weight of these expectations increases like unseen chains rather than decreasing. Consider it. When someone else needed you, how many times have you postponed your own plans? How many times have you taken money out of your savings to support a family member who was having financial difficulties, putting their needs ahead of your own? How many times have you abandoned everything because someone thought you would, including your goals, your sleep, and your desires? What do you get in exchange? A brief note of gratitude? A brief expression of gratitude before the next request comes in? It's not that you're not loved by your family. However, out of habit rather than malice, they have grown to expect your generosity, attention, and support. Since you have always been there to help, they expect you will continue to do so. As a result, people keep depending on you, frequently without understanding how much they are asking for and how much of yourself you are giving up. However, who is watching out for you? When was the last time someone genuinely cared about your pleasure and asked you what you wanted? Not just casually? Is this all there is if you've ever experienced a persistent emptiness or a whispering, quiet ache? You're not by yourself. It's normal to think, when is my turn, after decades of giving? Now is the answer. Right now. Giving without expecting anything in return should not be the norm at this point in life. It should be a period of self-reclamation, a chance to pursue new interests and aspirations, and an opportunity to put your own pleasure first without feeling guilty. Perhaps it's visiting the locations you used to only dream about. Perhaps it's learning to play an instrument, enrolling in that painting class, or finally establishing the garden of your dreams. Perhaps it's just giving oneself permission to sleep, to wake up free of obligations, and to go about your day as you see fit. Furthermore, this isn't selfish. It's not incorrect. Self-preservation is what it is. It's justice. It is the long overdue realization that you are entitled to a happy and fulfilled life as well. Your loved ones will understand if they genuinely value and respect you. Just like you've always desired happiness for them, they'll want you to be happy. And they have to deal with it on their own if they find it difficult to accept. You've done more than enough already. Mary, 72, has dedicated her life to her family, raising her kids, providing for her husband, and then taking care of her grandchildren. She was there for them whenever they needed assistance. However, she felt worn out and unfulfilled as she approached her late 70s. She realized one day while gazing out the window that she had put off her dreams, travel, adventure, and painting for decades, and she always would, unless she changed. Margaret established boundaries for the first time. She took an art class, organized her first solo trip, and joined a hiking group. Her family was initially taken aback and even irritated. However, they eventually adapted, and Mary felt really free, experiencing life for herself for the first time in years. Now is your moment. For years, maybe a lifetime, you have been burdened with duty. It's time to let go of that load now, with pride rather than guilt. You deserve to live a life where your satisfaction comes first, free from the constant demands of other people. Therefore, I implore you to embrace this chapter for yourself, not for your kids or grandkids, and not out of responsibility or duty. Since you deserve it, since the moment has come, since you are deserving of it. The final piece of advice is to avoid being around poisonous people. Family is more than just a term to many of us. It serves as a foundation for our lives and a sense of belonging. We are taught from an early age that family ties should always be respected. That even in the face of suffering, we must maintain the virtues of endurance and forgiveness. However, even among people closest to us, we will unavoidably come across challenging relationships as we move through life. And this might lead to a painful internal struggle. Do we put our own mental and emotional health first? Or do we keep up these relationships out of duty? This choice may seem unachievable due to the burden of guilt and social expectations, particularly after years of enduring abuse in the hopes that things will improve. It's simpler to think that damaged relationships may be repaired when one is young. However, as we age, we realize that time is limited. Furthermore, we lose every hour we spend in relationships that drain us. How many times have you been subjected to rude remarks, coercion, or downright disregard just because you believed it was your responsibility? We are taught by society that family is the most important thing, that we should forgive without conditions, and that we should put aside hurt in the name of love. Allowing someone to break your spirit, however, is not unconditional. Consider a situation you are familiar with. A child who consistently brushes off your emotions. A grandchild who doesn't call until they need money. A sister who keeps you feeling guilty by reminding you of past transgressions. Or even a partner who no longer shows you respect and care. These circumstances hurt. However, they are real, and a lot of people suffer in quiet, telling themselves that it is their duty to put up with it. However, would you put up with this kind of treatment from someone outside your family? Such as a friend or neighbor who made fun of or took advantage of you? Why should it be different just because it's family if the response is no? Recognizing when a relationship has gotten toxic, regardless of how deeply ingrained it is in your past, is the greatest act of self-love you can do. Being elderly shouldn't entail becoming a silent victim and putting up with abuse in order to maintain harmony. Rather than stress and hostility, it ought to be a period of calm during which partnerships provide solace, happiness, and support. Imagine the liberation that comes from breaking bad relationships and waking up without the burden of persistent negativity. Imagine living in a world where everyone values, respects, and cherishes you. They appreciate you for who you are, not just when they need something. It is not harsh to establish boundaries. It's a self-preservation action. People who genuinely care about you will recognize and honor those limits. Those who don't were never considering your best interests. At this point in your life, every day is a gift, and you should spend it with people who truly care about you rather than those who just take advantage of you. The idea that love necessitates suffering, that family entails unending sacrifice, and that you have to put up with relationships that make you feel tiny, undervalued, or used needs to be dispelled. This doesn't imply severing relationships with all of the people who have ever harmed you. But it does entail identifying the people who bring value to your life and separating from those who hurt you frequently. Choosing yourself is not a betrayal. Your peace and contentment are not self-serving goals. They are necessary, and one of the biggest, bravest acts of self-love you can do is to protect them by establishing limits or establishing distance. Boundaries was written by Dr. Henry Cloud, a clinical psychologist. Strong insight on this subject can be found in When to Say Yes. How to say no to take control of your life. Setting boundaries is about determining what you are willing to put up with, not about trying to alter other people. You receive what you put up with. This serves as a reminder that establishing boundaries in relationships, whether with friends, family, or anybody else, is about safeguarding our own well-being and making sure we surround ourselves with compassion, respect, and true love rather than attempting to influence others. Therefore, take a deep breath. Believe in your right to serenity, and understand that by putting yourself first, you are creating room for the respect, love, and joy you so richly deserve. Because having a life where you are appreciated, cherished, and at peace is ultimately what you were designed to live. Please let me know if these thoughts were helpful by leaving a comment below. Your opinions are important, and I would be delighted to hear them. The fourth piece of advice is to quit waiting for other people to acknowledge the sacrifices you have made. Have you ever taken the time to reflect on all the times you put the needs of others before your own? The moments when you gave your everything to your parents, your partner, your kids, or close friends, always prioritizing their happiness over your own. Consider the aspirations you discreetly put on hold, the objectives you put off, and the pleasures you gave up in the hope that they would eventually notice. That they would appreciate everything you've done with thankful eyes and see how much you love and sacrifice for others. It's reassuring to think that the people you gave up something for may one day appreciate your efforts. However, the harsh reality is that things don't always go as planned in life. You might never get the thank you you've been expecting or the long-awaited moment of recognition. Think about all the times you've desired in private that someone would recognize what you've done. The late nights spent thinking back on the many deeds of kindness you've performed. The dreams you gave up for yourself. And the time and effort you put into making someone else's life easier. But how often has that appreciation gone unvoiced? You may start to doubt your decisions, your relationships, and even your own value as a result of the profound emptiness that follows. Your heart may be silently burdened by this want for recognition, which may get heavier every year. The harsh reality is that when we depend on other people to justify our sacrifices, we give them control over our pleasure and make it dependent on their approval. And disappointment sets in when that acknowledgement isn't received, gradually giving way to bitterness, which is much more profound. You can catch yourself reliving the past, going over sacrifices that seemed worthwhile at the time but now seem unappreciated. An unseen wall of resentment can encroach on your relationships, causing distance where love once existed. Worse yet, it may cause you to doubt your own generosity and wonder if all of your altruistic deeds were worthwhile. Here's what you need to keep in mind, though. Whether or not other people value the sacrifices you make does not define their worth. Your character, not theirs, is reflected in the love you have shown, the times you have gone above and beyond for others, and the effort you have put into improving someone else's life. They serve as evidence of your strength, compassion, and the generosity of your heart. And whether or not anyone ever recognizes it, that is something to be proud of. Letting up on the need for approval from others is the first step toward achieving true serenity and fulfillment. Your value is determined by the strength, kindness, and integrity you have demonstrated throughout your life, not by how other people see you. Imagine the freedom to know that your joy comes from inside, not from a thank you that may never be expressed, and that your happiness is not reliant on the favor of others. This is about honoring your sacrifices according to your own terms, not about ignoring them. Time becomes much more valuable as you age. Living a life unencumbered by other people's expectations and without the silent hope that someone would eventually notice what you've done is incredibly beautiful. Your efforts are still worthwhile even if you accept that you might never receive acknowledgement. Actually, it has the opposite meaning. It indicates that your kindness was always genuine and that you loved and gave without expecting anything in return. This acceptance is a profound act of self-love that frees you from the burden of disappointment and enables you to move forward with a full heart. So, if you're still watching this video and think these teachings are helpful, please let me know by leaving a comment below. Additionally, while you proceed on this path, keep in mind that your worth is not determined by the appreciation of others. It stems from your unfailing generosity, your silent fortitude, and the unconditional love you have shown. Forgetting is not the same as letting go of resentment. It's about taking back your life, your happiness, and your tranquility, and the best present you can offer yourself is that beyond everything else. The sixth piece of advice is to quit letting your age be a reason for not changing. At first, this reality could be unnerving or uncomfortable. However, our uneasiness is frequently an indication that something significant is emerging. How many times have you said, "I'm too old for that," and so passed on a chance to learn? A new experience, a fresh start, or an opportunity? Age frequently turns into a handy reason to remain the same. Whether it's taking up a new pastime, breaking a bad habit, changing your perspective, or even letting love back into your life. Here's the reality, though. It is never too late to make a change as long as we are living. This insight is freeing rather than confining. It implies that there is still time to develop, grow, and seize the opportunities life still presents. Regardless of how many years have gone by, the idea that growth is impossible after a certain age and that we should slow down instead of level up is one that society frequently promotes. However, this is a strong fallacy that keeps far too many individuals trapped in a safe but unsatisfying life. We settle when we accept this myth. We convince ourselves that we have interests, wants, and dreams for a younger, more energetic person. We lost out on amazing possibilities because we convinced ourselves they weren't for us anymore. not because they were impossible. Consider it. How many times have you wished you had written that book, attended that art class, learned to play an instrument, or visited that ideal place? How many romantic relationships, friendships, or even passions did you end? You convinced yourself it was too late, not because they were wrong. The difficulty of beginning anything new is frequently considerably greater than the regret of not trying. However, most people are unaware of this. An advantage is age. Every year brings with it a richness of experiences, a deeper awareness of who you are, and the insight to clearly manage life's changes in ways that younger generations haven't yet encountered. You have persevered through adversity, enjoyed victories, and developed resilience. Knowing that you've already conquered so much gives you amazing power and the confidence to welcome change. The idea that it's too late is the sole true obstacle. You have the ability to dispel that belief, even though it may seem firmly rooted. Use your age as a foundation rather than a constraint. Allow the knowledge you have gained from your history to serve as stepping stones to an exciting future. Although change can be unsettling, consider all of the changes you have already had to make. Childhood, adolescence, motherhood, and retirement. There were difficulties at every point, but you adjusted. Why should things be different at this stage? Why not make it equally significant and exploration-rich? Consider the kind of life you could lead if you viewed your age as a strength rather than a limitation. You might finally go on that vacation, launch that company, strengthen your bonds with others, or follow a long-suppressed interest. What's the best part? You're not changing at this point to please others, live up to expectations, or establish your worth for yourself. You're doing it. James, a 68-year-old retiree, thought his prime was over. Before he discovered an old sketchbook from his early years, his days seemed routine. He had long since given up on his dream of becoming an artist. But rather than brushing it off, he purchased new pencils and began drawing. After starting as a hobby, he eventually sold his first painting at the age of 72. Took an art class, and made new acquaintances. James understood that the idea that it was too late was the only thing preventing him from moving on. His life became more joyful and purposeful the instant he let go of that. Your life's years are not a countdown to the end. They bear witness to your experience, your knowledge, and everything you still possess. The human spirit can change at any point in life and is limitless and timeless. Therefore, why not view aging as a starting point rather than a destination? Give up the idea that it's too late and accept reality. Every moment is an opportunity for development, happiness, and learning. You have the ability to change, grow, and build a future full of opportunities as long as you are here. The road doesn't end here. This marks the start of an amazing new chapter. The sixth piece of advice is to not obsess over the past as though it were your only hope. Nostalgia frequently follows us on our life's path, enveloping us in the warmth of treasured memories, the laughter of long-gone companions, the ardor of adolescent love, and the ambitions we once pursued with unending vigor, as though they are beckoning us back to a period when life was more thrilling, fuller, more important. Those memories of the past can occasionally seem even more real than the present. Particularly as we get older, it's simple to become enmeshed in these memories and withdraw into them. They provide solace by serving as a reminder of our past selves and experiences. Indeed, it can be extremely therapeutic to reflect on the past in moderation. It's how we pay tribute to the life we've led. However, there is a thin line that we must be careful not to cross because we run the risk of becoming captives of our own memories when we start to focus more on the past than the present. Regardless of their beauty, they shouldn't define who we are now. How many times have you found yourself wishing you could go back to a time when you were genuinely happy or thinking, "Back in my day, things were so much better"? Although initially reassuring, this way of thinking might subtly persuade you that your finest times are over. It gives you the false impression that the past was the only period of life that was worthwhile, keeping you caught in a never-ending loop of comparison and longing that almost makes it hard to enjoy the present. Too much attachment to the past can cause you to lose sight of the opportunities that still exist. Even if it might not be as magical as your childhood, the present is still real, palpable, and the only time that is completely yours. Every time you lose yourself in the past rather than accepting the present, You waste valuable time that could be used to have new experiences. Find new pleasures, and find purpose in your current life. Consider this: life has a limit. You lose out on every moment in the present when you long for what is already gone. Imagine how devastating it would be to find at the end of your journey how much of it was spent gazing back rather than ahead. Every season of life has its own lessons to teach, pleasures to offer, and special chances. Your prior experiences had their place and time, helping to shape who you are now. But they do not fully capture who you are. This is a new season, and with it come gifts and unanticipated advantages. Your recollections are not all that you are. You're the decisions you make today, the manner you choose to spend the time you have left, and the life you keep building every day. Remember that your golden years were never intended to be your whole tale. However alluring it may be to relive them, they did their part, and now you are facing a new chapter. Finding happiness, meaning, and even wonder in the future is the true task, not yearning for the past. Don't allow your melancholy to prevent you from appreciating the beauty of what's left. It's normal to experience a feeling of loss for the years that have gone by, for the youthful vitality, and for the chances that once seemed limitless. Life still presents fresh opportunities for encounters, relationships, and surprises that are just waiting to be seized. You have an option. Will you let the current state of the world, with all of its flaws and uncertainties, enter your heart? Or are you going to remain ensconced in the past? A sight of nostalgia is lovely, but it should be a destination rather than a place you call home. Although it is a part of you, your past does not fully define who you are. Allow yourself to believe that there are still amazing things, people, and experiences in life that you have not yet experienced, discovered, or treasured. The future is full of possibilities, but it is also uncertain. Living fully is accepting each day as it comes, looking forward with optimism, and holding on to the conviction that there is still purpose and fulfillment to be found in the here and now. Give up the idea that you are past your prime. Have faith that you still have a lot to discover. Instead of becoming a burdensome chain, let nostalgia serve as a soothing reminder. Give yourself permission to savor this moment, to live it to the fullest, and to make new memories that you will later cherish as much as you do now. Life is still going on, and it is beckoning you to join it. Instead of merely observing, take action and welcome it. The seventh piece of advice is to avoid masturbating every day, when done in moderation and on occasion. Masturbation is a normal and healthy aspect of self-care. It can enhance sleep, reduce stress, and even support mental health. In fact, research indicates that by releasing endorphins, the body's natural feel-good chemicals, sexual activity, including masturbation, can help control mood. Even in older adults, regular sexual activity, including self-pleasure, was associated with better mental and physical health, according to a 2016 study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine. However, what occurs if it turns into an obsession or, worse, a daily habit? Excessive indulgence is often an escape from loneliness, stress, or even a sense of purposelessness in retirement, rather than a pursuit of pleasure. Over-reliance on this habit can deplete energy, diminish motivation, and even cause isolation instead of giving long-lasting joy. It might eventually take the place of worthwhile pursuits, diminishing rather than increasing life's richness. The true question is, are you momentarily distracted or genuinely satisfied? Instead of turning to a single habit to cope, think about different methods to make your life more joyful and fulfilling. Go for a stroll in the morning. It has been scientifically demonstrated that nature improves mood and reduces stress. Explore a book that takes you to a different place. Take up a mentally stimulating pastime, such as painting, music, or even picking up a new skill. Reconnect with the warmth of human connection by having in-depth, meaningful talks with friends. These encounters provide enduring fulfillment and enhance general well-being in ways that no short-term solution could. This is about balance, not shame or guilt. You might actually rediscover more joy in life's many other forms if you cut back on this habit. Imagine being happier, more connected, and more fulfilled just by extending your comfort and pleasure-seeking boundaries. Your senior years should be used to broaden rather than to shrink your world. A life full of richer experiences, closer relationships, and a feeling of purpose that gives each day significance can be had by adopting moderation. Pleasure. after all, is about living your life fully and joyfully, not simply about one act. I want to leave you with a question as our adventure draws to a close. What caught your attention the most today? Was there an idea, a lesson, or a change in viewpoint that you found particularly meaningful? Think for a moment, without action. Insight swiftly wanes. What is one takeaway from this conversation that you may use to improve your everyday life in terms of clarity, fulfillment, or serenity? I'd love to hear your opinions. So please leave a comment below. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if this video improved your day so that we can keep having these discussions. Your assistance is greatly appreciated and helps get these messages to people who may be most in need. We appreciate you watching, reflecting, and joining us on this path to a balanced, wise, and meaningful existence. Take care of yourself and enjoy every second till the next time.